In a calm part of Willowbrook, there was an old woman named Mrs. Mabel Livingstone, who everyone called Miss Mabel. She always had her silver hair in a tidy bun and wore a dress that looked like it was for church, no matter what day it was. She had lived in the same simple house on Maple Avenue for over 50 years. Her husband had died 10 years ago, and her children lived far away, so they didn't visit much. She often felt lonely, but her morning walks to the local park made her feel better. Willowbrook Park was the heart of the neighborhood. Families came here for picnics, teens played basketball, and older friends sat together sharing old stories under the big oak trees. Among the teens were Jordan, Ava, Tyler, and Hannah, a tight group who spent their afternoons talking about school or playing basketball. One warm afternoon, Miss Mabel was sitting quietly on her favorite bench, holding an old worn-out photo album. But something was different about her today. She seemed nervous instead of her usual calm self. Her eyes kept looking around as if she were searching for something or someone. The teens noticed and gave each other a look. Jordan, always the leader, signaled to his friends, and they walked over to her. "Excuse me, ma'am," Jordan spoke softly, making sure not to startle her. "Are you okay? You seem a little lost." Miss Mabel's grip on the album tightened. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice trembling with fear. The teens froze, realizing she was frightened. "We're not here to bother you," Ava said gently, flashing a reassuring smile. "We just wanted to see if you needed help." "I don't need anything from you," Miss Mabel replied, taking a small step back. "Please, just leave me alone." Tyler stepped back, creating more space between them. "We didn't mean to scare you," he said, hands raised in surrender. Hannah, who had been quiet, sketching in her notebook, observed Miss Mabel closely. The elderly woman's posture was tense, her shoulders hunched as though she was protecting herself. Miss Mabel's foot slipped as she took another step backward, nearly falling. Jordan instinctively reached out to steady her, but she recoiled from his touch. "Please don't touch me," she whispered, her voice strained. Jordan froze, his hands still outstretched, and quickly apologized. The air between them felt heavy with misunderstanding. The teens genuinely wanted to help, but Miss Mabel's fear ran deep. Sensing the tension, Ava suggested they give her some space. "We'll just be over there," Jordan said, pointing to a nearby bench. "If you need anything, we'll be right here." The group backed off, sitting on the bench a short distance away, watching quietly as Miss Mabel remained frozen in place, still clutching her photo album. After a few minutes, Jordan noticed she hadn't moved. He exchanged a glance with his friends, silently asking if they should try again. They nodded. Jordan stood up, approaching her even more cautiously this time. "I'm really sorry we scared you," he said. "We just want to make sure you're okay." Miss Mabel's expression softened slightly, but she still looked guarded. "Why do you care?" she asked quietly. "Because you're part of this neighborhood," Tyler replied from the bench, his voice gentle. "We look out for each other here." Hannah put down her sketchbook and spoke up. "We see you here often with that photo album. Is there something missing?" Miss Mabel hesitated, then sighed. "I've lost something very important to me, a photograph of my husband and me from our wedding day. Here's the corrected version of your script with grammatical improvements. It's the only copy I have." Hannah's eyes widened with empathy. "When did you last see it?" she asked. "About a week ago. I was showing my album to a friend, and I must have dropped it somewhere." Miss Mabel's voice cracked as she spoke. "We'll help you find it," Jordan said immediately. "We'll search the whole park if we have to." For the first time, a small smile appeared on Miss Mabel's face. "Thank you," she whispered, her eyes brimming with tears of gratitude. The teens sprang into action, organizing themselves to cover different areas of the park. Tyler searched around the basketball court, Ava scoured the playground, and Hannah focused on the benches and walking paths. As they combed through the park, they asked passersby if they had seen the missing photo. An hour later, they regrouped. No one had found anything. Jordan shook his head apologetically. "We haven't found it yet, but we're not giving up." Ava stood up and faced the others. "We need more help. Let's get everyone in the park involved." Soon, the entire park was buzzing with people of all ages searching for the missing photograph. Hannah, using her artistic skills, quickly sketched a portrait of a young couple on their wedding day based on Miss Mabel's description. She handed copies of the drawing to volunteers to help guide their search. Meanwhile, Tyler approached a group of elderly men playing chess near the gazebo. Have you seen a photo like this? He asked, showing them Hannah's sketch. One of the men, Mr. Doris, squinted at the drawing. That's a beautiful picture, he said, nodding. We'll keep our eyes open. As the community came together to help, the teens noticed how deeply moved Miss Mabel was by the outpouring of support. She watched with teary eyes as strangers and neighbors alike searched for her lost memory. Just as the sun began to set, Hannah felt a tap on her shoulder. It was a man in his 40s holding a small frame in his hands. "Excuse me," he said. "I think I have something that belongs to her." Hannah gasped. It was the missing photo. When the man handed the photograph to Miss Mabel, her hand shook as she took it from him. Tears filled her eyes as she gazed at the image of her and her late husband, young and in love. "Thank you," she whispered. The man smiled warmly. "I'm David," he said. "I bought this photo at the thrift store earlier today. I didn't know who it belonged to, but something told me it was important." Miss Mabel looked up at him, her breath catching. "David, could it be?" David nodded. "Yes, Aunt Mabel, it's me. I've been searching for you." The missing photo didn't just bring back Miss Mabel's memories. It also reunited her with her long-lost nephew. The teens watched in awe as they witnessed this heartfelt reunion, but they knew they could do more. Jordan, eyes gleaming with excitement, turned to his friends. "Let's throw her a party, a special one, to show her how much this community cares." The next day, the park looked transformed. Families brought food, neighbors set up tables, and Hannah painted a mural of Miss Mabel and her husband on their wedding day. When Miss Mabel arrived, she was overwhelmed by the outpouring of love around her. Standing in front of the mural with tears streaming down her face, she looked at the teens and the crowd gathered there. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, her voice shaky with emotion. "You've given me back a piece of my heart. You've reminded me that I'm not alone." The teens smiled, knowing they had made a real difference, not just by finding the photograph, but by helping Miss Mabel reconnect with her past and her community.